Before I begin, I'm telling y'all this video will not be as in-depth as my former Factional Flaws videos. The reason for this will be made obvious in the video proper. Raiders don't need fixing in their traditional sense. There is no real overarching story there, at least in the new games. They're fodder bad guys, and that is exactly what they're supposed to be. However, there are issues with them that can be fixed and questions that can be answered through minor tweaks. By the way, before we get to the meat and potatoes, so to speak, this will only be about the base game raiders, unless otherwise specified. Adding the Nuka Raiders and Trappers would complicate matters, and if I eventually do talk about either in depth, it will probably be in their own video. Let's start with their unusual solidarity. By the way, this mostly affects the base game. There is actually a half-decent explanation in Nuka World for it. So, with a few extreme outliers, in Fallout 4, all raiders in-game do not attack each other. If you lead a raider on a merry jaunt to another raider base, those new raiders do not seem to attack the first one. Even though, if anyone knows how untrustworthy and dangerous raiders are, it would be other raiders. They should not be okay with an unknown raider approaching their territory. Heck, Slag is marked as a raider class and helps allies, meaning I believe he would help out any other raider, even non-forged in a fight, which, considering his personality and standards, I highly doubt that's lore accurate. That dude doesn't dig weakness. At least Slag is only encountered in one interior area, so it's not likely to come up, although I think it's still technically possible, assuming you are completely crazy enough to go out of your way to lead a non-forged into his area. Although, at the same time, having the guts and grit to chase somebody all the way through the ironworks might actually just impress that lunatic. Still, it's a bizarre thing to be sure. A simple fix for this would be to mark the different raider gangs with different tags, making them at least somewhat hostile to other raiders, or better yet, have raiders refuse to enter specific areas and have them say something about not wanting a turf war. We know this is possible because raiders giving chase won't follow you into Swan's little piece of paradise. You could even have some gangs randomly recognize other raiders according to a tag each raider gets when spawned. I have no idea if that one's even possible, though. Now, is all this really necessary? Maybe not. I'm fairly certain most enemies will only follow you so far before breaking off and going home. I am, however, also fairly certain that at least a few separate raider gangs have encampments very close to each other. This is even more odd since we know for an absolute fact that at least lore-wise, not all raider gangs get along. Red Turret and Tower Tom's groups are basically in their own miniature Cold War during the events of Fallout 4. At least in this particular instance, I do not blame Bethesda for the oddity of almost every raider in-game being friendly with each other. Yeah, I felt just as weird saying it as you felt weird hearing it. But since the raiders are fodder bad guys, and there are an enormous quantity of them, it would probably have been rather difficult to tag every different group with a specific behavior. I could be wrong about the difficulty of doing that, though. Also, it is incredibly weird that Red Turret seems to have the Courser class. Yeah, the Institute Courser class. I have no idea what that's about. Next up was going to be the unifying symbol. I was gonna say that most raiders, with again some outliers, utilize the same stylized skull as a symbol and go over why that's an issue. However, while there is a symbol associated with them in most out-of-game sources, after looking around many raider bases, I don't think said unifying symbol is in the base game itself, at least not intentionally. Which is weird, as in previous playthroughs I could have sworn there was one. I suppose it could have been a different game I was thinking of. So I guess kudos to Bethesda for not making the most antagonistic, untrustworthy faction look like a unified force. Even if, as I've gone over, they kind of sort of are in-game. Although, they do all seem to like using Halloween decorations for their bases. This at least makes sense. Jack-o'-lantern symbols and skulls are things people who are overly edgy and hopped up on who knows what might consider intimidating to non-raiders, and the bombs dropped right before Halloween, so they likely would be the most prevalent decorations left from the pre-war world. It's also entirely possible, maybe even likely, that the raiders, being innately opposed to real work, just don't take down decorations when they claim a building as a base, and it's just coincidence that the Halloween decor and raider ideology kind of line up. Next up, where are all the smart or truly capable raiders? This isn't Batman. Criminals aren't all a superstitious and cowardly lot. We know that a handful of raiders are vastly more capable than others. Slag likely has the know-how to maintain actual power armor and not just the raider junk variant. Jared is at least a competent chemist. Demo utilizes a trap ambush method of robbery that is far more successful than just pew-pewing at the nearest settlement. Solly Mathis is supposed to be able to persuade others to help with setting up a raider base without them even knowing. Let's face it, though, we all knew something was off with that guy even without the terminal entries. And Zeller utilizes brainwashing to increase his group's numbers, and maybe brainwashed himself, although if that is the case, the original or previous cult leader there is dead, probably by Zeller's hand, implying a horrifying cycle. The game actually has some interesting character lore and world building if you ignore the shockingly dumb main story. What all these folk have in common is that they're all raider leaders, meaning they should be at least somewhat more capable than the average raiders. However, in the base game, I don't think we encounter a lot of truly intelligent lower-ranking raiders. No truly intelligent person would want the target of raider leadership on their back. It's the entire reason, or at least one of the biggest reasons, the most competent person amongst the Nuka Raiders is not Overboss. The fix here is painfully simple. Have a mix of raider notes and overheard dialogue from lower-ranking raiders that makes some of them seem smarter. What conversations we do get tend to make them sound psychotic, ridiculous, or chaotic. Some of them are really funny, though.
See the last one we tried to pull in with all the grenades? I was out doing my rounds. Well, Becca pulled him into the front of the store, and everything seemed fine, right? He must have got spooked or something, because he suddenly started throwing grenades everywhere. What you guys do? That's the thing. It turns out they weren't grenades at all. They were just rocks. He was making the sounds with his mouth. Pins being pulled, the whole 9 yards. Fucking nuts. You guys taking it out? No, we just stood there. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. After he threw about a half a dozen rocks near the back of the store, he started making machine gun noises and backing the door. Once he got outside, it sounded like he pretended to get on a motorcycle, which of course didn't start right away. Then he took off toward the freeway and what sounded like full throttle, shifting gears. It's insane. How does someone like that survive out here? Oh, I don't know. There's some lunatics out there.
But a few actually intelligent conversations wouldn't go amiss. Maybe discussing backup plans in case their current boss becomes dangerous to them, or discussing various side hustles they have going just in case. As for the notes, why not have a small chunk of lower-ranked raiders have blackmail material or information deadman switches on their bosses? They wouldn't want to be boss, but making sure their actual boss isn't going to throw them off a roof or into an unwinnable fight for no reason would be understandable and make them look smarter. The reason I say a small chunk is because a lot of raiders, a lot of them, are probably so chemmed up they don't care what happens to themselves. But this certainly wouldn't be the case for all of them. And no, Eleanor doesn't really count as one of the smarter ones. She saved the caps she stole from people and eventually retired. That doesn't require all that much intelligence, especially considering how long it seems to have taken her to do so. She is over 60 after all. Next up, raiders look far too uniform. Most raiders in the base game are dressed very similarly. This is an issue, but it's likely the most forgivable and understandable one in regards to raiders. They are fodder bad guys, so sinking a ton of development time into making them more varied would be iffy at best. However, that doesn't mean that lore-wise, it's not a problem. Most clothing and armor in the Commonwealth would be scavenged or pieced together, but raiders tend to all have clothing or armor that fits a specific theme. They almost all look like OG Mad Max characters that lost most of their muscle mass. Or worse, they're wearing overcomplicated armor made of hoses and spikes for some reason. Hoses and spikes that could easily get caught on just about anything. and that look more goofy and over the top more than intimidating. A lot of raiders are wearing lawn johns under something, which makes me wonder how many pre-war companies were specialized in making a single style of pajamas. Oddly enough, at really high levels, some of the raiders can wind up looking almost identical to gunners. I guess that is at least appropriate. Gunners are just fancy raiders. And then we have power armored raiders. With a very small number of exceptions, all power armored raiders utilize only pieces from the Raider 1 or Raider 2 power armor sets, and Raider 2 is just upgraded Raider 1 armor. Almost none of them saw the countless sets of canonical T60 in the Commonwealth and thought, hey, that's probably better than what I have, I think I'll take it. And yeah, some of that armor is behind locks or in dangerous areas, but not all of it, and danger likely isn't going to stop a chemmed up raider from trying to grab it. It also implies that basically none of the Commonwealth raiders know how to pick a lock, which isn't just dubious, it's ridiculous. I can honestly see most of them not having a high level of expertise with terminals, so power armor in areas locked with one are not really a big issue. If there were any fix for this section, it would be variety. No, seriously, that's it. Add a decent pool of ragged pre-war clothes and even more piecemeal armor, and the occasional T-45 through T-60 to the Raiders' equipment pool, and voila, a less uniformed-looking group of bloodthirsty psychos. Before the ending section of this video, I want to go over one more weird thing. The North Star ghouls are marked by the game as raiders, but I'm fairly certain that they're not. When you encounter them, they become hostile, but they are saying things in Norwegian that roughly translate to, "What do you want from us? Leave us alone. Go away. You killed him!" And when one dies, they say, "I'm coming home." If they are involved in any Radiant Raider quest, it's only because the game has them flagged as raiders. You're not able to engage with them in any way aside from combat. This entire location and its NPCs seem like more cut or unfinished content. Kinda like most of the rest of the game. I would say that maybe these ghouls are supposed to be something akin to a tragic misunderstanding, but if that's the case, it's done incredibly poorly. The fix for this is incredibly simple. Either make it clear through settlers, preferably the Warwicks, since they live near literal spitting distance from the North Star, that these ghouls are raiding settlements, or give the player the option to find a way to communicate with these ghouls and help them out. It's that simple. My final thoughts on this. It is a bit odd that Bethesda making some of the raiders actual characters causes these issues, because it makes us ask, why are just so many of the others blank murder hobos? Honestly, despite my dislike for the Outer Worlds, at least they tried to explain the fodder bad guys being fodder bad guys. Spoilers for the Outer Worlds DLC, they're basically just a copy of the Ravagers from Firefly. This should not surprise anyone, especially consider the aesthetics of that game, but at least it's an explanation. I really wish I could add more, but like I've said, they're fodder bad guys. They don't really need much fixing. I do, however, like the occasional touch of being able to sneak up on raiders and hearing their conversations. But like I said earlier, it usually just makes them sound crazier. I guess that's all for this video, so I'll just say, thank you for listening to my inane ramblings.